Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Zibby. How are you today?
I'm good. Oh, I love your book spread behind you. I'm jealous. Well, congratulations on the launch of your book. It's so exciting.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been unusual and a little different. Nobody ever sort of thinks they're going to get published in the middle of a pandemic, and so a lot of the plans that we had made and carefully crafted have all gone out of the window. But that's fine. You know, the book is still out there, and that's the important thing, and it's still getting into people's hands, and I'm grateful for that. So, no book tour, but I get to speak to you instead. So it's
There you go. So much better.
great.
I love how on your blog you talked about how you and your daughter went driving around dropping off copies of the book, and
Right.
it became like a whole family thing. And the piles of books you had in the store that you got to give out at the door. I mean, it's such a nice way to build the community and make the book event. I feel like this is like a throwback to another era where people might have like distributed their books by horse and carriage or something.
Yeah, yeah, and in fact, in the Paris hours, there's one of the characters does actually drive around Paris delivering her boss's book to people. So I hadn't thought of that until this very moment. That's so funny. Who knew?
There you go. You're just channeling these characters. They're so ingrained in your brain. You just can't help but act like them.
I guess so. Wow, that's terrifying.
Can you hold up your book and tell people
Sure.
watching what it's about?
Okay, so let me see if I can get into it. So
There
there
you
it
go.
is. It's called The
Perfect.
Paris Hours. So the book takes place over the course of one day, one hot summer's day in Paris in 1927. And it's a novel, but there are really four separate stories that go through the novel, and they're told in alternating chapters. And each story has its own character. So we follow the course of these four people through the course of this day in Paris. There is an impoverished painter who is on the run from some thugs who he borrowed money from. There is an Armenian puppeteer who's a refugee from the Armenian genocide who performs puppet shows in the Paris parks for children, although he performs them in Armenian and not in French, and so nobody can really understand what he's saying. There is a writer or journalist, I should say, who tells other people's stories because his own story is a little too painful for him to tell. And then finally, there is the maid of Marcel Proust, who was the person I was talking about earlier. And the story really began with her. I was reading a memoir of Marcel Proust's actual maid, and she wrote at one point about how he asked her to burn his notebooks, and that just sort of struck a sort of chill through me. And you know, as novelists, we're always on the lookout. I always say we're rather like magpies. We're always on the lookout for shiny things that we can steal, and in our books. And I had a very strong sort of visceral reaction about this burning of the notebooks. And so I thought, well, that's, you know, you've got to follow your gut and your instinct. And I thought, well, maybe that's something I should be writing about. And so really from that seed, the rest of the story came.
Wow. This is an argument for confidentiality agreements for maids, right? Otherwise, right? They obviously she did not sign a document. There's now it's a novel. So anyway.
Well, I would say actually, so Celeste was incredibly loyal to Proust, his real life mate, and she wrote this book. But she wrote it because Proust, I mean, France reveres its writers like no other country except maybe Ireland, and for years, because he died in 1922, and for 50 years. She was badgered and people wanted her to tell her story, and she never did. She kept her silence for 50 years, and finally at the very end of her life she wrote this memoir, and it's an incredibly touching book. And the friendship that the two of them had, I mean, it was very peculiar, but it was very deep, and it was wonderful, and it was fun and a challenge to try and recreate that for sort of my fictional purposes.
That's great. So I wanted to talk to you also about your bookstore, because not only are you launching a book in a pandemic, but you are running an independent bookstore, which is, I mean, that's always been a dream of mine, is to have a bookstore, and a dream of like every person who loves books. I feel like.
Right.
What is it like? You actually have your own bookstore. Is it like, and what is it like now?
Well, first of all, it's the best thing ever. I mean, I really had no idea what I was getting into when I sort of decided to do it. I made the very, very smart decision of finding a business partner who knows a lot more about it than I do. Her name is Kerry Kupke, and I wouldn't have done it without her. She is wonderful and she is great. But I'm having the most fun of my life. There is nothing like. First of all, it's just a wonderful space to be in. It's a beautiful shop, and it's just lovely to be there. I adore everybody who works there, and and I'm sort of talking sort of pre-pandemic at this point, and the joy that there is from having a conversation with somebody. You may know them, you may not know them, and then finding out what they're looking for, and then putting the right book into their hands, and then they walk. It is wonderful. It's so rewarding and so fulfilling. And I'm loving it. You know, I've done many, many things over the course of my life, and this is by far the best one. So it's been great. Now, we have been closed for 7 weeks. We have not let anybody in the door except for the UPS man. But we've still been very, very busy. We have just changed our business model totally. So we are now a mail order business. And so we mail out a ton of stuff. We do, as you mentioned, we deliver things too. Sometimes with Catherine, my daughter, sometimes I bring my dog along, but we trundle around town delivering happiness like the Easter Beagle. And so that's been a challenge, but what's been really amazing is the community has rallied around. I like to think, understand the value of having an independent bookstore in the town. They want to see us succeed. Well, right now they want to see us survive. And so a lot of people have been, and we've been fulfilling orders from all across the country. I mean, it's been just astonishing. We've been wonderfully busy, and we're very, very grateful for it. And just last week, we were able to start doing curbside pickup again. So we sort of, people can pull up and we sort of throw their books through the window at them. But it's not the same, and we miss our customers, and we can't wait to get back. But we're actually, I mean, this is probably more information than you need. We are actually allowed to open now, but we have decided not to, because we don't feel yet that it's a safe thing to do. So we're biding our time. But even in these strange times, there's still a lot to do, and we're still managing to have some fun as well, which is great, and still selling a lot of books.
That's great. That's very encouraging. Just randomly, how did you end up in Missouri?
Oh yes, the old question. So well, very, very quickly, I'll give you the super quick.
Yeah, the super quick answer.
Yeah, I followed somebody here. We actually met in Paris, in fact, and then we got married in New York, and then we lived in London for some years. But she is actually from mid-Missouri, which is where I am now, and so we came back in 2003. We're not together anymore, but you know, we have kids, and so I wasn't going to go anywhere. So that's that. I don't think I've ever said it quite as quickly as that before.
Got it. Well, gotcha. I have 4 kids, and I'm also divorced and remarried now, but I understand the need to, you know, sometimes I'm like, I'm just going to move to LA, and no, you can't move at all. So
right.
You pick a place, and you know, you're there. So anyway, yep. You make your bed and you sleep in it. So that's it. Anyway, well, congratulations on your book. Will you hold it up again just one more time? Thank you. The Paris Hours by Alex George. It's like the 24 of, you know, 1929. So anyway. Well, thank you so much, and enjoy your recent release.
Thank you very much. Great to speak with you.
You too. Bye, Alex.
Bye-bye.